Hey Rob, you ready to do the Banjo Kazooie experience?
Ready's all revealed.
Alright, let's do it!
Here we go. Alright. Well, my friend, I gotta say, I am pretty disappointed. Hey everyone, welcome to another awesome episode of Backlogged. Please don't forget, if you like what I'm doing here, to hit that like button down below, leave a comment, and make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you can see more. I'm really excited about today's episode. We're keeping things old school on the show for a little bit here. We're going to move on to the N64 library on Nintendo Switch Online. Which may very well be a library new to Switch owners. There's some neat stuff on there, a lot of familiar titles, and a couple surprises as well. I'm really excited to get to a library of games that I'm familiar with, but also including a few new surprises for me as well. I absolutely love the 64. Weird thing though, I didn't have a lot of platformers, although I think I'm going to be getting into that soon. So for today, let's get into a classic 64 platformer, one that I have never beaten and hardly even played. Today, we're tackling Banjo Kazooie. Let's go. So oddly enough, I didn't actually own many platformers on my N64. I only remember owning DK64, which was very cool. My N64 library was largely filled with multiplayer games that I played like they were single player, because friends are totally overrated. It was a lot of Mario Kart, Mario Party, and Super Smash Bros. Don't worry, I had my Zelda games and Paper Mario, but I never even owned Mario 64, which is punishable by death for 64 owners these days. So yeah, I played a little Banjo Kazooie on Blockbuster rentals, but I didn't spend a whole lot of time with it. I was also a massive baby back then, and Grunty's lair kinda freaked me out. Honestly, that hasn't changed much. I still scare real easy. So from time to time, I rented Mario 64 and eventually owned it on other systems, and have since come to recognize its awesomeness. Yet, every now and then, I would hear the outlandish claim that Banjo Kazooie was actually the best platformer on N64. I was a bit skeptical, and honestly, I still am. Look, this is Mario. Do I have to explain how monumental the character is and how good his games are? No. Look, I'm not ruling out the possibility. I know there are games I like better than Mario, but another platformer? It's just hard to swallow, you know? At any rate, Banjo Kazooie tells a very Snow Whitey story. Gruntilda the Witch thinks she's the prettiest thing around, and when her talking kettle points out the obvious and tells her Tootie, Banjo's little sis, is cuter, she kidnaps the young bear to steal her cuteness. Banjo and his bird pal Kazooie then go to her lair to hunt her down and save his sister. That's it. Nothing wrong with a simple story. Frankly, it's already more story than most Mario games. So how does it play? Well, it's a 90s 3D platformer, which means collectibles. Dozens and dozens of collectibles. The first level tells you about all the stuff right out the gate. We're talking 5 Jinjos, 100 notes, 10 Jiggies, and a set of Mumbo tokens and new abilities in each level. Banjo feels a smidge stiffer and slower than Mario did in Mario 64, but I kind of like it that way. Mario felt just a bit slippery at times, and it made a few precision moments feel extra risky. The bear and bird combo opens up a lot of clever ideas for ways to get around and tackle obstacles, and that's before Mumbo turns you into all manner of creatures. For an N64 game, this game looks and sounds really good. You get just the right atmosphere for each area. Grunty's lair is foreboding, Mumbo's Mountain is fun and easygoing. All in all, I'm very satisfied. I personally find Mario's music a bit more fun in general, but there's not much that sounds like Banjo. I gotta say, I see a lot of design ideas that remind me of DK64 quite a lot. I think several sound effects were reused, and I actually really like how these games take a few simple but memorable melodies and keep rearranging them in different styles. It's very satisfying to me to recognize a tune but get a completely different feel from it. Also, the little voice murmurs the characters make when speaking adds a ton to their personalities, even if it is a bit obnoxious. I will say this, I don't mind the Switch Online versions of these N64 games, they seem fine to me. I do wish they would let us remap the controls. Sometimes it works okay for the game, like Paper Mario, but I really need to use buttons for all the C button moves in this one, and the toggle on the ZR trigger is hard to use properly on the fly here. I could easily forget to release that toggle button at certain points and end up turning the camera when what I'm trying to do is jump. It's not a deal breaker for me, but it's really not ideal. For the most part, Banjo Kazooie has been delightful. I really like the idea of the main hub being another level all its own. It really helps to feel like even as you're jumping between the levels, you never have to readjust your playstyle. I appreciate that every level has a distinct theme, but the level designs are really surprising. Take Bubble Gloop Swamp. Sure, you got your typical dangerous water, precarious pathways, swampy stuff. But then you cross a couple pathways and wham! Giant crocodile head! Head another way and you find a giant turtle too! Wild! Not to mention the jiggies you get from the turtle, but I don't like giving away answers. Ultimately, this game is both a standard 3D platformer and uniquely surprising. What was most interesting to me in playing through this game was this nagging feeling that all the little things that did bug me wouldn't bother me much at all if I were more familiar with the game. Don't mistake my nitpicks here as an indication I didn't like the game, but there were a couple things that rubbed me the wrong way. First of all, I had trouble pinning down the logic behind a lot of puzzles in the game. I recognize that's merely a symptom of learning an unfamiliar game, something I'm not all that well accustomed to. I've at least tried most every game I could think of. However, towards the end of the game, they started to introduce mechanics that feel a bit unfair. Specifically, Mad Monster Mansion introduces truly invincible enemies with very few options to get past. Annoying, but not unusual. However, this level also introduces structures that can be broken into at certain points. The problem is that there is absolutely no hint that this is possible, let alone necessary. While I appreciate the creativity, honestly this is a pretty cool idea, but how am I supposed to figure that out? On a different note, Boggy the polar bear is a freaking rubber banding cheater! So most of the game was charming and wonderful, but I had a couple turns near the end. The first was Rusty Bucket Bay. This level is the absolute worst. Enemies after you everywhere, most of them a surprise, an unkillable shark, an unkillable piranha, boxes that blow you up, and the whole place is filled with oily water that takes away your air faster even if you're not submerged. Oh, and guess what? That's not even the worst part. This is one of the only levels that has a bottomless pit. By the way, while you never lose your jiggies when you die, the level's collectible notes reset, and those notes are absolutely everywhere! This is the only place I actually used the Switch Online save state function in this game, just so I could finish without having to restart. It still took 4 tries before I finished the dang level. Thankfully, this was saved by the last normal level, Click Clock Wood. This area was brilliantly designed. It starts with a mini hub area with 4 doors, each displaying a symbol referring to the 4 seasons. You can only enter spring first, with each subsequent season being unlocked somewhere in the level. Each version of the level is the same overall layout with a number of changes to reflect the passage of time. There are lots of examples of this, but my favorite was Airy the Eagle. Hopefully I pronounced that right. In spring, you hatch the egg. Then you feed him worms over the summer and fall, and if you do that by winter, he will be fully grown, flying off to do whatever he wants, I guess, and leaving you one of your Jiggies. It's just really impressive level design all the way around, and a real treat before the end of the game, which swung me back to a place of satisfaction. So for once, I am going to spoil something, because I was not prepared, and it's really important to know this from the start. The last level, Grunty's Furnace Fun, is a Mario Party looking thing where each space has a different challenge for you. Some are little time trials of things you've done before, but most are trivia questions about the game. Now, I think I proved last month that I really enjoy video game trivia, and for the most part, I like what was here. It made me feel smart, though I am greatly confused about why this is here. I guess it's a neat way to reflect on the experience you've had, but it just comes way out of left field, even for this kooky title. I feel the need to warn you, not only to pay attention to, well, pretty much everything, sounds, music, characters, and so on, but much more important, quick, lean in so you don't miss this. Do not ignore Bryntilda. She's a good witch you can bump into in Grunty's lair all over the place and tells you how gross Grunty is with a bunch of TMI bits about her personal life. I found this amusing but superfluous, and how I wish I had listened. Some of the trivia questions at the end are learned by talking to Bryntilda, and had I listened, that area would have been far less painful for me. Oh, and don't worry, there's a proper boss fight with Grunty after that. Might take a couple tries, it's pretty easy overall. All in all, this game was packed full of surprises. I really wasn't ready for it. I'll admit, I couldn't resist the completionist urge on this one, and I did use a guide to make sure I picked everything up. I can't help but think about a quote I heard from one of the creators, that this game was designed to beat Mario 64. I'm not ready to make a call on which one is better just yet. I'll die on that hill another day. But I can say this much. To those of you who do think this is better than Mario 64, I get it. I will never try to convince you that you're wrong. So it's on days like today that remind me why I'm doing this show. I can't believe I pretty much ignored this game back on the 64. It just didn't catch my interest for some reason. And I really don't know why, because having actually played through the game now, it is definitely unforgettable. I really doubt that I'm going to find another game quite like Banjo Kazooie anytime soon. I did learn a little bit of something while going through this game, in that 3D platformers really require you to become familiar with the game. It's definitely a kind of game where the more you play it, the easier it gets, and then it just feels like coming home again when you get back to it. It's just wonderful. Now, one thing I do want to cover right now, I actually enjoyed this game enough that I went ahead and played it again, this time on the Xbox, Series X in my case, with Rare Replay made for the Xbox One that contains almost all of Rare's games, including all the Banjo Kazooie games. To be completely honest, the Xbox version of this game fixed everything I didn't like that much the first time going through. Things like notes disappearing when you die on a stage, things like having to just recollect various items. There were a number of changes. It even fixed the control scheme, since I did mention that the 64 Switch Online button mapping is not great. But those fixes in particular even saved Rusty Bucket Bay. I did not hate that level nearly as much playing on the Xbox. All that said, the bottom line is, if this game is still in your backlog, you should definitely hold on to that sucker, finish it, and play it again from time to time, because it's that good. Alright, thank you so much for watching the video. A huge thank you, first of all, to my friend Tim, aka Flame Beardman, for his appearance at the beginning of this episode. And now, for your trivia, to find out what the next episode is going to be. So this enormously successful series began in 1997 and was first known as Race and Chase. What game is that? That'll be next month's episode. I'll see you then.